Awesome. I am just going to make sure that we're good here. Okay. I think we are live and ready to go. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. My name is Danielle Moore. I'm a parent and family support specialist with the Urban League of Greater Madison, and my counterpart, Veronica Castillo, is working in the background today. So if you have any questions in the chat, she'll make sure that I ask them, and let's get started. So this workshop this morning is going to be kind of some information about MMSD's reopening. We'll go through some risk reduction strategies to make sure that if you are deciding to send your scholar back to in-person, that you have the best practices in place to reduce the risk of getting COVID. Okay. So there's kind of 5 main risk reduction strategies that we're going to focus on. The first one being physical distancing. So in any place where you're with other people outside of your household, the CDC is recommending that you're staying at least 6 feet away from people when possible. So within the classroom situation, they've reduced numbers and spread desks as far apart as possible. And if you're in an outdoor space as well, just trying to keep a distance from people, because when you cough or sneeze, those germs can spread pretty far. So you want to make sure that you have that distance in between you all to make sure that you're staying safe and healthy. Another risk reduction strategy that you want to use is hand washing. So you should be washing your hands more frequently. So you want to wash it whenever you're coming back into your home, before putting on a face mask, after using the restroom, after coughing or sneezing, just to make sure that you're using, hot, warm water and soap to get all the germs off your hands. And when you don't have the ability to go to a sink, using hand sanitizer as a substitute also works. We don't want to just quickly rub our hands together and run it under the water. There's actually a technique to washing our hands that we should be using. So this video here will explain the WHO's recommended way to wash your hands. And this video is also kid friendly. So when you're starting to have conversation with your scholars about prepping, going back into school, this would be a good video to use to talk to them more about how they should be washing their hands.
How to wash your hands using the World Health Organization's method.
Hi friends, this is how to wash your hands.
Step 1. Wet your hands. Remember friends, we want to wash our hands for at least 20 seconds to make sure we get rid of all of the germs. Step 2. Use enough soap to cover both hands entirely. Step 3. Rub your hands palm to palm. Step 4. Put one palm on top of your other hand, interlace your fingers and rub. Repeat with the other hand. Step 5. Put your palms together and interlace your fingers and rub. Step 6. Rub the back of your fingers together with your hands in fists. Step 7. Make a fist around your thumb and rub rotationally. Repeat on the other hand. Step 8. Clasp your fingers together and rub them in a circle in the palm of your other hand. Make sure to do this on both hands. Step 9. Rinse your hands with water. Your hands are now clean and safe. Step 11. If you are at home, dry your hands with a clean towel. If you are in public, remember to open the tap with a single-use towel, throw it away, dry your hands with a new single-use towel, close the tap with it, and throw that away too. Stay safe, friends, and thanks for watching. Grab your free step-by-step kid-friendly hand washing printable available to download in the description of this video.
Thanks for watching!
Awesome. So that just walks us through the recommended technique in order to wash your hands effectively. The next risk reduction strategy is wearing a mask. So using the language of masking up, it's recommended that you have a cloth or a surgical mask. Healthcare providers are asking that you reserve those N95s for them in the high risk fields, making sure that we're reserving the limited number that are out there for them. So using a surgical mask that is disposable or having a reusable cloth mask is just as effective in what you would need in the school setting. You want to make sure that when you are wearing your mask that it is on properly. So I have a mask here. You want to make sure that when you put it on, you're using just the side loops to put it on, and you're going to put it over your ears and then adjust it on your nose so that it's clean there. So you want it over your nose and under your chin. So you're covering your entire face with it. You don't want it under your nose because you're breathing out there and it's not covering it there. And you want to make sure that it's on kind of fit and snugly. So you can go ahead, that's another thing that you kind of want to start to practice with your scholars, just wearing a mask and making sure that they get comfortable with wearing it in the proper way so that it's over their nose and under their chin. If you are using those cloth masks, you want to make sure that we're cleaning them effectively and making sure that we're kind of treating it like our underwear. So it's a one-use thing before you want to wash it again. And this video here will kind of quickly walk you through how you can properly wash your mask.
Hey.
Okay. So just making sure that when you're washing it, you can use either a sink or throwing it in to a laundry machine. Making sure that if you are using the sink and washing it by hand, that you're scrubbing it really nicely, making sure you're getting in all of the folds of it, just really washing it very well, and then letting it air dry, maybe in a windowsill. COVID-19 virus lasts within fabric for about a week. So you could also, if you don't have the tools to wash it at home, just letting it sit in the windowsill, letting it get that sunlight and sitting for a week is also another way that you could. Okay. The next risk reduction strategy is covering up. So this is talking about when you're coughing or sneezing, making sure that you're using your elbow to cover your cough or sneeze, just to help, block the germs out, and then reinforcing the hand washing and washing up kind of into your arm once you cough or sneeze as well. So practicing those things with your scholar. I know dabbing was a thing, so you can maybe use that reference to help your scholars remember how they should be coughing or sneezing into their elbow. And just making these conversations in this language a normal thing when you're talking to your scholar about going back to in-person schooling. And finally, one of the bigger risk reduction strategies is if you are showing any symptoms, just making sure that you're staying home. It's always better to be on the safer end of things. So just really being cautious with symptoms and making sure that you're staying home and reducing any risk of spreading any kind of illness that you have, even if it's just a cold, or if it does end up being COVID, it's always better just to stay home when you're sick. Okay, so here's some mitigation strategies that MMSD has very carefully thought about and have released this awesome video explaining all of the things that they've prepared for and thought about when reopening. Okay, so those are the things that MMSD is releasing about all the mitigation strategies that they're putting into place, and using that language of remembering those 5 things. So backing up, masking up, covering up, and then staying home when you're sick, and then also wash up. Okay. So here's just some more information about the 4K reopening. So 4K will be beginning March 23rd is when they will return. And there's 2 options for 4K families. They can either choose to opt into having 2 full days of in-person for their scholar, or they can have 2 full days of virtual. And those 2 days are going to be broken up depending on how many families choose which, either to be Tuesday and Wednesday or Thursday and Friday. You can have your scholar switch from in-person to virtual at any time. If you decide to start sending them back in person, but figure out that that's just not the best thing for your family at that time, you can always switch them back to virtual. However, if you did continue to be virtual and wanted your scholar to switch to an in-person, that change won't be available until the April 5th through 12th week to see kind of how things are going and where the numbers sit. So making that change needs a little bit more time to figure out logistically, so they won't open up that option until that week in April. Okay. Similar with elementary school, kindergarten is starting March 9th. So next Tuesday, those kindergartners will be going back in person if that's what their family decided. And then grades 1 and 2 will start on March 16th. So here's a little look into what the classroom looks like for MMSD students and some changes that they've implemented to help reduce the risk. So the first big change that you'll see is masks. So anytime that you are at school, students and staff will be required to wear a mask. The only exceptions are when they are eating and drinking. And if they're taking sips throughout the day, kind of just quickly take it off, take your sip and put it back on. These help protect against COVID-19. So that's why we're in an indoor space. So those will be required to wear. The next thing that you'll see is lots of hand washing and sanitizing. So each classroom should have their own sanitizer, and there will be times throughout the day that teachers will have scholars wash their hands. You want your scholar to be kind of practicing and encouraging them to use hand sanitizer, or if they can wash their hands when they get to school and when they're about to leave, after blowing their nose or coughing or sneezing, after they use the restroom, before and eating their food, and then anytime that you touch your face, when they go out to recess and come back in. And then also if they're sharing materials or touching kind of those high touch areas. So like if they're using a lot of doorknobs and things like that, just making sure that they use sanitizer after that. Physical distancing. So the goal is to have 6 feet apart. However, sometimes that's not possible, and that's where kind of the mask comes in to help. So 6 feet is the recommended and what we're aiming for at all times. However, know that in some situations your scholar might not be able to keep that 6 feet. So that's why it's also super important to encourage them to wear their mask properly to help in that situation. There will be signage throughout the building and in the classroom, just reminding our scholars of those big 5 things: to mask up, back up, cover up, wash up, and staying home. So it's really useful to make that language and the way you say it frequent in conversation when you're talking to your scholar about going back in person, just because then they're more used to hearing that and know more readily how they should respond. If maybe a staff member asks them to mask up, maybe it slipped below their nose, they know immediately what to do if they've heard that language in conversation at home as well. Air circulation. So thanks to the referendum that was passed, MMSD was able to improve their air circulation and filters within the school buildings. So it's set that every 10 minutes, all the air that would have been in the room is circulated and filtered, and using the awesome resources that MMSD has and their engineers, and also hiring outside places just to make sure that this is as good as it can get. So that is an improvement as well that MMSD has made. Different disinfection procedures. So any high touch point places will be cleaned more frequently. All the staff has been trained in how to clean things and different procedures that they're supposed to be using, making sure that we're disinfecting as frequently as possible and to the best that we can. Technology. So specials are still going to be taught virtually just to help limit how many people your scholars are interacting with, and then also the specials teachers. So they will still have their Chromebooks to use for specials. Specials are super important to our scholars' learning, so we want to make sure that we're still able to keep that in their school day. So having it accessible through that technology still will be utilized in the classroom. And then teachers will also be utilizing technology to teach concurrently with any scholars that are deciding to stay at home as well. And then supplies will be a little different. So scholars will most likely keep their backpacks and supplies with them near their desk or in a special cubby. And that is their space to hold all of their things. So there will be less shared supplies, just, again, to limit any sort of cross-contamination and just sharing things. So scholars will have a place to put all of their things and to use their own materials like pencils, color pencils, markers, things like that, rather than having the big classroom set. They'll each have their own supply to use. And then cohorts, so that's splitting our scholars into virtual and in-person groups. So they'll stay within their cohort as well. So your scholar won't be interacting with other students that are in person that are in a different cohort as well. So they'll stay in their room and with them during lunch and recess, any restroom breaks, and then they'll be arriving and leaving school at the same time as well. And staff has gone through training about COVID-19 and then also just safety measures that the district has provided to them. So they're all prepped and trained to do all of the things that they need to do to help reduce risk. So again, these are the big 5 things to remember and to start introducing to your scholars in conversation when you're getting them ready to go back to in-person learning. So mask up, cover up, back up, wash up, and then stay home if you're sick. Okay. And then we can quickly go over what the schedule would look like. So depending on if your school is an early start or late start, it will just differ in what time things are happening, but your scholar learning will be a little bit shifted just because teachers are doing concurrent teaching, and we want to make sure that all of our scholars are getting the different type of instruction methods that are needed throughout the day. So they'll still have big whole group lessons, small group, and then also independent learning time. It'll just look a little different if your scholar is in person or at home for what times those things are happening. So for example, a literacy block is split into kind of those 3 groups of whole group, small group, and independent time. So it would start with your scholar, whether you're in person or at home, having that whole group lesson. So teachers will be utilizing the technology in order to teach at home and in-person students at the same time for those whole group mini lessons. After that, a teacher will take those in-person students and work with them in small groups, while at-home students will be having their independent learning time. And once that time frame is up, it'll just switch. So those in-person students then would have their independent learning time, and the at-home students would have small group time with their teacher through Zoom. So very similar kind of to what was happening when everyone was at home. Just sometimes will change on when, if your scholar's at home, when they'll need to be logged into Zoom. So just pay close attention and kind of reworking how you have your scholar scheduled to be on Zoom or working independently. And then the preference changes and switching from in-person to virtual is the same as 4K. So if you are deciding to send your scholar in person right away, but figure out that's not best for you and your family, you can always switch them back to virtual at any time. However, if you are starting virtual and decide, okay, like I would like to send my scholar to in-person, that change will open up starting April 5th through 12th. And that's just a click that you would like. You won't actually start in person that week. It's just communicating to the district that you would like to switch because they will have to change some things logistically. Okay. So that is kind of all the information that I have this morning. I want to make sure that I have time to answer any questions that you might have as well. And then I believe we also have Angela Ward from the Family Community Youth Engagement Department monitoring our chat on Facebook too. So if you have any questions that I can't answer, she might be able to answer. Otherwise, we will push it into the district to figure out answers to questions as well. Okay. So I have a question. What is the plan for grades 3 to 5? So currently, the plan is to see how reopening goes for these younger kiddos. And then if things go well, we'll slowly integrate grades 3 to 5 back into in-person as well. So the initial survey asked those families to fill out whether they would prefer to be in person or virtual, just to help gauge numbers and figure out more logistically how they could do that, because school buildings are also at different capacities. So that was just to gauge at what capacity they can take them back in. I believe volunteers won't be allowed back into school buildings, just to help eliminate as many people coming in and out. But subs are, and I know they're pushing to get more subs just to help make sure that there's enough staffing in case teachers need to call out sick. Of course. Okay. There any other questions? And I see that if you have any other questions, you can feel free to email Angela, and her email is ayfitzgerald at Madison, MADISON, period K12, period WI, period US. So if you had any other questions that would probably be more district related, she is willing to answer those as well. Okay, awesome. If there's no questions that I see, I just want to let you know about our drop-in office hours. They've changed a little bit since we now have another person on my team. Veronica is amazing. So we have morning times and then also kind of early evening times. So each day of the week we're available from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. And then also 4 to 6 p.m. Except on those Fridays, we don't have that evening time. And then our contact information is here as well. If none of those times work, feel free to email us and we can schedule a one-on-one meeting together or just answer any questions via email. And then we have joined Facebook. So if you're viewing this on Facebook, please like and share our page to share with any families that you might know that could use this information. And thank you again for joining us this morning. I appreciate everyone being here. And then, yeah, thanks again.